It's Monday. We survived another weekend, although I'm not sure our plants have survived everything. Anyway, we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday, reading Crowley's notes on the astral plane. That's the title. We're not going to discuss it on the astral plane, although technically we are. Anyway, tomorrow is election day in the United States, or I think most everywhere in the United States, the midterm elections. And depending on your level of awareness, this might be an important election for people here in the United States. And so I hope you have voted if you are 18 or older, and no matter what your opinion may be on things, I hope you at least availed yourself of the privilege of voting. You may argue that it probably won't do any good, but actually it might. So if you haven't voted early, please go to the polls tomorrow, whether it's raining or snowing or whatever. If you don't have a ride, get a ride and go. Keeping that in mind, I'm toying with the idea. Oh, there's my I voted sticker. I'm toying with the idea because I've been fascinated lately with geomantic divination. Now, it's something that I've dabbled in pretty heavily about 50 years ago, or about 53 years ago. And always been fascinated with it because it deals with in-your-face ASEA, world of ASEA level questions and answers. It should be a very practical, in-your-face Earth oracle, if you will. And something has been prompting me to get back into it, at least for a little while, because something seems to be going on here inside that says, get out the geomancy stuff again. And so I've got out my clay tablet and all sorts of fun things. But I thought it would be fun. It would be fun and interesting if certain key election results, if I could get the predictions for a couple key election things. So look at it this way. The absolute best book on geomancy is the one by John Michael Greer. Okay, The Art and Practice of Geomancy. It's the best, in my opinion, the best one ever written. But the fundamental text is Franz Hartmann's Geomancy, the Method of Divination. That's sort of the granddaddy of sort of the modern point of view. And also an absolute excellent book by the brilliant Stephen Skinner, The Oracle of Geomancy, or Geomancy, however you want to do it. And if you're further interested in this, please get all three. But I thought it'd be nice. Okay, let's say I'm going to use an example. There is a quick and dirty geomantic technique where you ask a simple question that sort of falls into one of 12 broad categories. And whatever your question is, you sort of lump it. You make your question make sense according to one of these 12 broad categories. Will the person inquired about have a long life? Will he become rich? Will the proposed undertaking end? How will the undertaking end? Is the expected child a boy or girl? Things like that. Very practical, Renaissance-y or even older questions. But whatever your question is, you could say that it falls under one of these categories. And then you ask the question, you draw 4 geometric figures, and out of those 4 figures you distill 4 more figures, and out of those figures you draw more, like mothers, daughters, nieces or nephews. And then out of all of that, you distill it into a left judge and a right judge, a left witness and a right witness, and put those together and they form a judge. And that judge figure gives you your answer. So it's almost simple calculation of odds and evens and things like that. But the judge should give you a pretty clear answer. Now, the answer may be correct or incorrect, but it's a pretty clear answer, okay? So I thought, like a question somebody might be interested in is, will Herschel Walker win in Georgia tomorrow or today or in the election? Will his campaign succeed? Will he win? And although I don't live in Georgia, somebody might be interested in that. So do me a favor, and I'm not sure I'm even going to do this, but if you're interested in a particular race, just drop me a Facebook thing and say, will so-and-so win in Georgia tomorrow, or will so-and-so win in Pennsylvania tomorrow, or something like that. And I'll try my best to at least pick a few of those and do a geomantic divinatory thing, and I'll give you the answer to as many of those as I can do for tomorrow. Here's something, there's all sorts of ways to get those 4 mother figures that you create all of the other figures from. But a long time ago, I made out of clay. I made these dice myself, pinched them with my own little hands like they're little pieces of chocolate or something. And out of this kind of craft clay that you can bake in the oven, okay? And so I made 4 dice here out of clay. It's an earth oracle. And the dice either has a odd, number 1 on one side, and on the very opposite side is 2. And then 1, and on the opposite side, 2. So when you throw the dice, hey, I'm not reading my thing. Throw the dice like this, and I've just drawn the figure that's all 1s. So that is the geometric figure of via. Okay. Which means something in it. But anyway, maybe we'll talk about geometry in more detail later, but right now, let's just tease ourselves with the fact that I'll probably, as a fun experiment, just try to predict a couple of election outcomes for tomorrow. Be that as it may. But I digress. This is where we picked up yesterday talking about the astral plane and Crowley's notes on the astral plane. And he's talking about, is this vision that I'm receiving a legitimate vision of an astral being, or am I just fooling myself? Is this my imagination? Is this my wishful thinking? Is this my magical megalomania gone nutso? And how many of us have met someone like that? Okay. Now, the proof that one is in contact with an independent entity depends on a sensation which ought to be unmistakable if one is in good health. One ought not be liable to mistake one's own sensible impressions for somebody else's. That's why it's ridiculous to ask somebody else, I saw a vision of Payaman, and Payaman, is Payaman supposed to look like, is that what your Payaman looks like? No. Your Payaman's going to be your Payaman. Okay. No, I'm sorry. He was supposed to have a green tie. Your vision is wrong. Okay. It's only one man's incurable vanity that makes Astral strayed reveler, which is a poem about the creative process. It's only one man's incurable vanity that makes Astral strayed reveler, or the mystic, confuse his own drunken babble with the voice of the Most High. The essence of the right sensation consists in recognition of the reality of the other being. There will be, as a rule, some element of hostility, even when the reaction is sympathetic. One's soulmate, even, is not thought of as oneself at first contact. One must therefore insist that any real appearance on the astral plane gives the sensation of meeting a stranger. One must accept as independent, being it archangel or elf, and measure one's own reaction to it. One must learn from it that one despise it, and love it, however one loathe it. Digression here for a second, if you forgive me. At my very first Goetic evocation, this is not technically an astral subject, but a magical evocation, meant to bring the spirit into visual appearance. And by visual appearance, I've learned over the years, That might not be with the cones and rods of your eyes, but seeing, if you will, the reality of the astral vision. In other words, it doesn't have to pop up like a material holographic cartoon. The holographic cartoon appears, you're seeing it with your astral eyes. But my very first evocation of the Goetic spirit, Ouroboros, was characterized by, I was nervous. I was doing everything, more or less wrong, and very inexperienced. It was my first evocation, so you're scared about a lot of things, and it was failing. The whole operation was, I was beginning to just get freaking embarrassed that I was a grown man doing this instead of just going out and getting a job or some. So after 2 or 3 conjurations, which takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of energy to whip yourself up to that state. And I was using the barbarous words of evocation, which sort of plunge you into an irrational state of mind, whereby an angel appearing to you does not seem like insanity. But nothing was happening. And I started to turn my frustration and the frustration of the whole purpose of me doing this evocation, the whole thing, the whole problem, the whole complex that drove me to do such an irrational act. I began to turn on myself. And instead of whipping up a genie to fix my problem, I was having to face that the problem was mine. Okay. And as I was going through this litany of beating up on myself and seeing, okay, yeah, you've done this shit your entire life. Okay, this is how you are. You snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory time and time. You're lazy, and you're you feel privileged. And as I was beating myself up in the triangle, something was happening. And what was happening at first was this thing that Crowley is describing here. The recognition of the reality of another being. And it came, I was busy narcissistically beating up on myself. I wasn't even, the triangle was there, all the goodies were there, I was in the circle, all of that was there, I was in the robe, and it was pinching my armpits, and got a wand in my hand, and I was beating the wand against my hand as I was beating myself up. I had forgotten that I was in the middle of a evocation ceremony. But suddenly, my attention was drawn from the depth of my own neppish, and all of a sudden thrown into the triangle. And something was there. Just like Crowley said. Now, the proof that one is in contact with an independent entity depends on a sensation which ought to be unmistakable if one's in good health. One ought not to be liable to mistake one's own sensible impressions for somebody else's. Okay. The essence of the right sensation consists in recognition of the reality of the other being. There will be, as a rule, some element of hostility. And if you're familiar with the story of that evocation, as it manifested, I was immediately attacked and blinded. But that's another story. Okay. One must therefore insist that any real appearance on the astral plane gives the sensation of meeting a stranger. Okay. One must realize on writing up the record that the meeting has effected a definite change in oneself. One must have known and felt something alien and not merely tried on a new dress. There must always be some slight pang of pain in a true astral vision. It hurts the self to have to admit the existence of a not self. It taxes the brain to register a new thought. This is true at the first touch, even when exaltation and stimulation result from the joy of making an agreeable contact. There is a deeper effect of right reaction to a strange self. The impact invariably tends to break up some complex in the seer. The class of ideas concerned has always been tied up, labeled, and put away. It is now necessary to unpack it and to rearrange its contents. At least the annoyance is like that of a man who has locked and strapped his bag for a journey and then finds that he's forgotten his pajamas. At most, it may revolutionize his idea of the business, and like an old bachelor with settled plans of life who meets a girl once too often. Any really first-class astral vision, even on low planes, should therefore both instruct the seer and prepare him for initiation. Those failing to pass this test are to be classified as practice. Now, if I may digress for a moment, this is sort of an answer to a question, a very good question that your friends and relatives continually ask you when they learn that you're practicing magic and you try to have a discussion with them. Why are you doing this? And it's the best question in the world. And you'll never adequately answer it, even for yourself, until that last little microsecond before you dissolve into complete Godhead, when you go, pfft, then you'll answer the question. But until then, it's a good question, and you really don't have a good answer for it. But one of the benefits of starting out by, I guess I have to learn the banishing ritual of the pentagram, and I have to learn to visualize stuff, and then I have to learn the invoking ritual of the pentagram, then I have to do the banishing ritual of the hexagram, then the invoking ritual of the, Enochian, I'm going to play with Enochian for a while. And you have all of these successes and failures and everything else, but why are you doing this, Lon? Crowley says it right here. Any really first-class astral vision, even on low planes, should therefore both instruct the seer and prepare him for initiation. each and every little thing that you do with the vague goal at achieving initiation and enlightenment mutates you, however so strangely, however so subtly, however so indescribably, mutates you toward that goal. One last observation seems fit. We must not assert the reality or objectivity of an astral being on no better evidence than the subjective sensation of its independent existence. We must insist on proof patent to all qualified observers if we are to establish the major premise of religion: that there exists a conscious intelligence independent of the brain and nerve as we know them. If it have also power, so much the better. But we already know of inorganic forces. We have no evidence of inorganic consciousness, a conscious mind. How can the astral plane help us here? It's not enough to prove, as we easily do, the correspondences between invocation and the apparition. We must exclude coincidence, telepathy, and subjective knowledge. Our praeter-human intelligence must convey a truth not known to any human mind, past or present. Yet this truth must be verifiable. There is one, you probably guess where Crowley's going with this, okay? And he's probably not talking to fledgling magicians below the abyss here, so keep that in mind. There is but one document in the world which presents evidence that fully satisfies all these conditions. This is Liber Al Vel Legis, the Book of the Law, of this new Aeon of Horus, the crowned and conquering child, the Aeon whose logos is the beast 666, whose name in the outer order was Frater Perdurabo. The nature of the proof of that separate existence of praeter-human intelligence, independent of both bodily form, is extremely complicated. Its main divisions may be briefly enumerated. And then he goes on to a fantastic digression. But remember, he's writing this in Cefalu, and these digressions may go on for quite a while. But anyway, that's where we're going to stop today. I'm not sure where this might be where we will end this discussion of the notes on the astral, because actually what follows is pretty much, while related, is pretty much another subject. So tomorrow, I think, unless I am convinced otherwise, maybe we'll have a little fun with election prophecies, using the ancient and venerable practice of geomantic divination, at least in the most bonehead and primitive way. Now, I pointed out those three books, the Franz Hartmann one, the Stephen Skinner one, and the John Michael Greer one. Those are good sound books to study. Sadly, the original comments on geomancy, which got pretty much the modern Western world interested in it, were in one of the earliest of the knowledge lectures of the Golden Dawn, and its members were encouraged to study and practice the art of geomancy. Until then, it was not on anybody's radar. Sadly, the material, say the handbook that probably MacGregor Mathers threw together about geomantic divination, is not the best. Okay, it's probably the most inaccurate, confused, and corrupted version, and incomplete too. So it's good that they did it. It's good that they got people interested in it. But if you're interested in doing it, just the fact that it was put forth, propagated by the Golden Dawn, in this case, doesn't give it good credentials. Anyway, let's see who's going to win tomorrow. I'll do at least 2 or 3 myself, and if you have a particular race that you're interested in, please just jot it in one sentence. Will so and so in such and such a place win tomorrow? Okay. Until then, continue to be good to yourself. Be good to each other. Day after tomorrow's our anniversary. Big 5-5. I hope I live that long. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself. Be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.